Hello, everyone. Welcome to Celsius 233, your go-to place for fiction book summaries. Today we will unravel the story within Room 13 by Edgar Wallace. Room 13 by Edgar Wallace, published in 1924, is a gripping mystery and detective novel from one of the most prolific British crime writers of his era. The novel delves into the world of criminal forgery, betrayal, and revenge, focusing on a convict's release and his determination to uncover hidden truths about those who wronged him. Set against the backdrop of early 20th century England, Wallace weaves an intricate plot involving love, deception, and crime. Plot summary. Johnny Gray had grown used to the grim routine of life in Dartmoor prison, where every day unfolded with numbing predictability. He spent his days pulling a heavy handcart alongside the wizened Lal Morgan, an old convict who had long resigned himself to his fate. But Johnny was different. Unlike many of the men around him, Johnny's guilt was not the product of his own misdeeds. He had been framed, accused of a racecourse swindle involving a horse named Spider King. The bitter irony of his situation gnawed at him, but Johnny accepted his sentence without complaint, his mind quietly fixed on the future. As Johnny's term of imprisonment drew closer to its end, a sudden letter from Peter Kane, his old mentor and father to the woman Johnny loved, tore open old wounds. Marnie Kane, Peter's cherished daughter, was to marry another man, Major Floyd, a well-to-do Canadian soldier. The news was a sharp blow, but Johnny, ever stoic, swallowed his pain. Love for Marnie had been the one pure thing in his life. But now, released from prison and free to start anew, he vowed to face the world without letting bitterness take root. 2 days after receiving the news, Johnny was unexpectedly called to the prison governor's office. His early release had been granted. The door to freedom opened, but with it came a new sense of uncertainty. As he returned to his old life, Johnny couldn't shake a feeling of unfinished business, especially with Jeff Legg, the mysterious man behind the fake Spider King horse. Jeff was the one who had shopped Johnny to the authorities, setting him up for a fall in a cruel act of betrayal. Upon his release, Johnny returned to London, where his loyal servant Parker greeted him with Spot, Johnny's faithful fox terrier. Despite his return to wealth and the comforts of his old life, Johnny felt a deep unease. His mind was consumed by thoughts of Peter Kane and Marnie, and more troubling still, by the shadowy figure of Jeff Legg. As Johnny reconnected with old associates, it became clear that Jeff Legg wasn't just an ordinary crook. He was the Big Printer, a master forger whose counterfeit banknotes had eluded the police for years. The truth of Jeff Legg's treachery soon hit Johnny like a hammer blow. Marnie's husband, the man she had just married, wasn't Major Floyd at all. He was Jeff Legg. The marriage, orchestrated by Jeff and his father, Emmanuel Legg, was part of a grander scheme to ruin Peter Kane. As Johnny pieced together the plan, he realized that the Legges sought to extort money from Peter, using Marnie's marriage as leverage. When Johnny arrived at Peter Kane's estate to confront the situation, he found himself in the middle of a delicate charade. Peter, proud of his new son-in-law, had no idea of Jeff's true identity or sinister motives. Marnie, however, had begun to suspect that something was wrong. Her cold detachment from her new husband, along with her evident discomfort, told Johnny everything he needed to know. Marnie had realized the horrifying truth, but had kept it secret to protect her father. Jeff Legg, with his smooth charm, tried to play the role of doting husband. But Johnny, whose instincts had been honed by years of criminal association, wasn't fooled for a second. Beneath Jeff's mask of civility lay a calculating mind, ready to crush anyone who stood in his way. Johnny knew that if Jeff's plot succeeded, Peter would be ruined and Marnie's life would be shattered. Determined to stop Jeff and save Marnie, Johnny took matters into his own hands. He confronted Leela Sane, the maid at Peter's estate, who was secretly working for the Legges. With a mix of intimidation and charm, Johnny extracted valuable information from her. Jeff planned to whisk Marnie away on their honeymoon, during which Emmanuel Legg would move in to demand a ransom from Peter. The trap was set, and time was running out. Johnny's next move was to warn Peter, but he was torn. If Peter knew the full extent of Jeff's deception, his protective love for Marnie would turn murderous. Johnny feared Peter would kill Jeff, and the consequences would be catastrophic for the Kane family. Instead, Johnny decided to outmaneuver Jeff quietly, gathering every scrap of information he could on the Legges, whereabouts, and plans. Meanwhile, Emanuel Legge, ever the schemer, plotted in the shadows. He arranged for two thugs to follow Johnny and cosh him, knock him unconscious, and make sure he wouldn't interfere with their plans. But Johnny, always one step ahead, managed to evade the ambush. As the Legge's sinister plot unraveled, the tension between father and son grew. Emanuel's greed and desire for revenge clouded his judgment, pushing Jeff to question the wisdom of their plan. In the final confrontation, Johnny exposed Jeff's true identity to Marnie, revealing the depth of his betrayal. Heartbroken but no longer paralyzed by fear, Marnie made her stand. As Jeff's control over her slipped, the Legge's grand scheme collapsed. Peter, devastated by the revelation but spared from committing a rash act of violence, thanked Johnny for saving his daughter. Johnny Gray, the man who had walked out of Dartmoor with little more than a desire to put his past behind him, had faced down the darkness that threatened to consume him and the people he loved. With the Legges exposed and their web of deceit torn apart, Johnny could finally breathe free, knowing that while he couldn't change the past, he had forged a future free from its shadows. That's all for now. The journey through Mr. J.G. Reader series doesn't end here. Check out the rest of the series by Edgar Wallace. You know where to find them. Remember, while our summaries capture the essence, they can never replace the full experience of reading the book. If this summary intrigued you, consider diving into the complete story, buy the book, and immerse yourself in Edgar Wallace's original work. Bye-bye, take care, have fun.